My name is Vicki Adelson. I'm a coordinator with the Special Education and Inclusion Department in the TDSB.
Okay, yes, sorry. My name is Sarah Smart, and I am an itinerant teacher with the C and Assistive Technology Department at TDSB.
So today we're talking about tiered intervention for reading in the TDSB.
I'll begin with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas, of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So today's agenda, we are going to review key changes to the Ontario language curriculum that occurred in 2023. We'll do a brief introduction to structured literacy. Following that, we will dive into the TDSB tiered approach to reading. We'll do a general overview of some of the reading intervention programs that are available and offered in the TDSB schools. And then finally wrapping up with some support for parents, some websites and resources to help support your child in their reading development at home. Slide. All right, so this image is the TDSB framework for early reading, and it provides the framework for educators in the TDSB as they plan their comprehensive literacy program. In supporting the literacy development of all of our readers, our educators build on what students already know and what they can do, helping them become confident and fluent readers and writers as well. At TDSB, we work together to create engaging and meaningful learning experiences that reflect our students' diverse backgrounds, their student identities, and centering their student voices. These experiences are guided by layered assessments that help educators track progress and identify specific areas where additional support might be required. Our approach aligns with the TDSB multi-year strategic plan, which aims to ensure that every student reads with confidence, fluency, understanding, and enjoyment, regardless of their background. Today, we'll emphasize the explicit and systematic instruction within the 5 pillars of structured literacy, which includes phonological awareness, recognizing and breaking words into individual sounds, the alphabetic principles, so understanding the relationship between the letters and sounds, fluency, which means reading with the speed and accuracy with proper expression, vocabulary, which is learning to use increasingly complex words, and comprehension, which is understanding the words that the students are reading. So this framework for early reading focuses on equity and anti-racism, ensuring that every student has access to high-quality literacy instruction tailored to their unique needs. We also do our best to integrate culturally relevant teaching practices to honor and incorporate our students' social, their cultural, and their linguistic backgrounds into their learning. To further support our diverse community and the students we serve, we continuously consult with various departments to meet the wide-ranging needs of our learners.
Sorry, we should have mentioned, please feel free to use the chat as we're speaking if you have questions. We'll also have some chance for questions at the end. So you may be aware that the Ontario language curriculum was updated last year, 2023, and was implemented this school year. And so I'm just going to explain a little bit about the rationale behind the updated curriculum. You may also be aware that the Ontario Human Rights Commission came out with a recent report on an inquiry called The Right to Read, which was around reading instruction in Ontario. And following the changes to the ministry curriculum took place following that report, along with many other different rationale as well. So I'm just going to read a few quotes from the ministry and also from the Right to Read and explain a little bit about the changes behind the updated curriculum. Reading is a basic and essential skill that impacts learning students' lifelong success. In school, reading is a fundamental skill that impacts learning in all other subject areas. All students are capable of reading with adequate evidence-based support. This includes students with disabilities or special education needs, and those who are French or English language learners. Early targeted reading interventions help close achievement gaps and prevent long-term learning difficulties, particularly for students with learning disabilities and those from underserved communities. So the changes to the curriculum were based largely on research around reading and how students respond to reading intervention to make sure that all students get high quality reading instruction and to build fundamental skills in reading in a much more explicit way than was done in the past.
Sorry, there's just a bit of a lag when I hit next.
Gives us a bit of thinking time. That's good.
Sure. There we go.
All right. So just looking at some of the changes to the curriculum. So on the left, you'll see how the curriculum was structured in 2006. And on the right, how the curriculum is structured now. So previously, the strands in the language curriculum were oral language, reading, writing, media literacy. And currently the strands are literacy, connections and applications, foundations of language comprehension, understanding and responding to text, and composition, expressing ideas and creating text. And we'll look a little bit more on the next slide about how those are set up. But the overall expectations outline standard sets of knowledge and skills required for understanding, using the building blocks of language, understanding and responding to text, expressing ideas and creating text, and making language connections in a diverse range of contexts. So the overall expectations remain the same from grades 1 to 8. And the curriculum focuses on developing foundational knowledge and skills in the early primary grades. As students progress into the middle and later elementary grades, these skills are reinforced and refined by increasing the complexity of tasks they work with and the tasks they perform over time. So this approach reflects and accommodates the progressive nature of language learning. So in the early grades, the curriculum is very focused on foundational skills and making sure students master those skills to later be able to apply them in many different ways. So this is the current curriculum structure. So you can see strand A is literacy, connections, and application. So strand A is a vital part of a curriculum. It helps students connect and use language skills in different subjects in real life situations. So this approach teaches them to be critical thinkers, responsible digital citizens, and active members in the community. So we want our students to be confident, skilled in the reading and writing, not only in school and in academic tasks, but in all areas of their life, in and outside of school. Strand A has 3 important parts: critical thinking, communication, and problem solving. So this teaches students how to think critically, communicate clearly, and solve problems. Digital media literacy, students are taught how to use digital information wisely and responsibly, which is essential in today's world. And then applications, connections, and contributions. This encourages students to use their language skills meaningfully, connect what they learn to the real world, and contribute to their communities. Strand B is the foundation of literacy learning. And it includes 3 areas: oral and nonverbal communication, language foundations for reading and writing, and language conventions for reading and writing. The oral and nonverbal communication helps students express themselves clearly and engage in meaningful communications while also being aware of body language and other nonverbal cues. Language foundations for reading and writing is where the focus is on essential skills for reading and writing. And this is the area that we see a lot of change in based in comparison to the previous curriculum, because this has really broken down into different skill areas, such as understanding skills, phonological awareness, decoding words, building vocabulary, and comprehension strategies. And for students in grades 1 to 3, 30 minutes of every school day must be spent on this area in order to develop these foundational skills effectively. Language conventions for reading and writing is where students learn the rules of written language, grammar, and punctuation so they can express their ideas clearly. And the idea of this strand is to really build up skills in this area, again, so students can master these skills so they can apply them in ways that are meaningful and effective in as they continue on with their academic skills and in the rest of their life. So strand B is critical, so it gives students the skills they need to read, write, and communicate effectively. This image is called Scarborough's Reading Rope, and this is a popular image from sort of reading research, and it also is sort of forms a foundation for the Ontario language curriculum, and also plays a big role in the TDSB early reading framework. I'm just going to explain a little bit about what this is showing. So the reading rope is showing on the far right side, where the strands are woven together, reading comprehension, fluent comprehension. And then on the left, the image breaks down those skills into its component parts. And there's two major categories here. The blue strands are oral language comprehension, and the red strands are word reading. So oral language comprehension includes things like background knowledge, vocabulary, syntax or morphology, literacy concepts, verbal reasoning, and pragmatics. And so that would be just listening to stories, understanding of oral language. And the red skill is word reading skills, so phonological or phonemic awareness, the alphabetic principle, decoding, vocabulary, morphology, sight word recognition. So that would be sounding out the words on the page. So that needs to become increasingly automatic so students can do that without thinking about it. And that in combination with understanding oral language orally, which over time becomes increasingly strategic, those two get woven together in ways that are harder to break apart as the skill gets developed to produce effective language comprehension. So both of those are very important for students, and both of those need to be developed over time for all students. And if there's weakness in either of those areas, the overall rope, if you will be weaker. So it's important that teachers are aware of these two different component parts, are working on both, and then understand when students are struggling with reading comprehension, which of those two major areas need to be developed, and then within that, which specific skills need to be developed to make sure that the overall reading comprehension is strong.
The TDSB recognizes that our students come to us from diverse backgrounds with a range of diverse experiences. And so we respond to their reading instruction and using a tiered approach to reading intervention. So by tiered approach, that means that tier 1 is what we're talking about, whole classroom instruction. Tier 2 happens in small group instruction with students who might need a little support in a specific area. And then tier 3 is for students who continue to need more support in specific areas, typically in word reading in that bottom area of Scarborough's reading rope. And so the tiered systematic framework provides tailored assistance, enabling educators to provide students with the level of support that they need to make progress in their early learning instruction. Schools at a local level decide how to implement the tiers of the reading intervention based on their unique local needs and the circumstances that exist in their classrooms. Okay. So in the TDSB, our approach to reading support follows this tiered reading intervention model designed to meet those diverse needs as they develop their reading skills. This model aligns with the Ontario Education Framework and research ensuring that every child receives the right level of support for reading growth. Tier 1 at the bottom in the green section is approximately 80% of our students, and that is universal classroom instruction and support. At this level, all students will receive evidence-based reading instruction as part of their regular classroom learning. Teachers use structured approaches that are evidence-based to build those foundational skills, such as phonemic awareness, decoding, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And most of our students make strong progress reading in this area here within Tier 1 instruction. For students who require additional support, they receive targeted help in small group settings. And this allows teachers to focus on specific skills where students might be facing challenges. The idea here is to bridge those gaps as early as possible, keeping students on track to meet their grade level reading goals. TDSB, and we'll touch a bit later on, TDSB uses programs like Wilson and Empower to support some of the students in these, but again, that's at a school-based local decision. So that's within approximately 15% of our students require additional support at some time in their reading journey. And that support could happen in their classroom and could happen in a small group setting outside. And finally, there's a small group of students who will continue to need more focused assistance. So at the top, that's Tier 3. And those students are receiving smaller group support for extended periods of time. And these interventions are specialized and designed to tackle persistent difficulties in reading. Schools might use programs like Empower or Wilson or Alexia to support students at this tiered level in the reading intervention. So through these 3 tiers, the TDSB aims to ensure that each and every student has the support that they need to thrive in reading, adapting instruction to each individual student unique needs. This model not only meets the individual needs, but also aligns with our commitment to educational equity by making literacy accessible to each and every one of our students.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each tier. It's important to note that how these tiers look and how this instruction looks specifically will depend on the context of each school, the students in the school, the context, and the tiered approach and how it is implemented can change over time depending on that context. So schools should be constantly reevaluating and progress monitoring students to make sure that that students are being effectively supported at the school. So that may change throughout the year, from year to year, depending on the student at the time. One thing that is important in all schools is that Tier 1 instruction includes strategies and instruction that effectively supports the majority of students, around 80% of students in the class. And that's through instruction with a regular teacher for all students. So within that Tier 1, there must be high quality and evidence-based reading instruction for all students. And within that, teachers utilize strategies that are sort of inclusively designed to make sure that a range of student needs are being supported at that tier. So that would include the principles of universal design for learning and differentiated instruction. Tier 1 instruction would include culturally relevant text, identity affirming literature, opportunities for students to use their voice, see themselves reflected, connect to the resources being used. And within Tier 1, there must be regular assessment of progress to identify students who need extra support. Within Tier 1, especially in the early years, there would be explicit and systematic instruction of early reading skills and really building up those foundational skills that I spoke about earlier, emphasizing the 5 pillars of language, and really making sure that each of those areas of the language curriculum are being supported. Within Tier 1, many different strategies can be used, including assistive technology that would be supportive for all learners. So Tier 2 is where we start to see sort of intervention, and this would be for students who need a little bit more support than what's provided in Tier 1. Students who are getting Tier 2 support in a specific area would still be participating in Tier 1 instruction, being a part of whole class literacy instruction and making sure that those students are have access to authentic text and a wide range of different literacy resources. So Tier 2 is meant to support about 15% of students. The support would be provided jointly by a classroom teacher and possibly a special education teacher. Support and students' response to intervention would be constantly monitored based on layered assessments. Students who are getting Tier 2 support in a specific area may have an IEP, an individual education plan. They may also have been brought to an IST or a SST, so an in-school team meeting or a school support team meeting, and have strategies being documented in an individual learning plan, but not necessarily. This typically is a targeted small group instruction, and it's time limited. So students are given instruction for a short amount of time. Their response is monitored, and then depending on the results, there would be an adjustment, either that they receive more support at Tier 2, that they need increased intensity of support at Tier 3, or that they no longer need that intervention in the higher tiers. So specifically how that support looks would depend on the areas a student might need extra support in, and different strategies being used at the school level. So Tier 3 would be for students who are not making sufficient gains at a Tier 2 level. So this is more intensive, more individualized intervention. And this is for about 5% of students. So this is a much smaller amount of students. And these are students who need much more explicit support. They need more opportunities for practice. This may be a smaller group. It may meet more frequently or maybe more individualized. At this level, students may have an individual education plan. Typically, this is where a special education teacher, in combination with a classroom teacher, would be providing the support. Students could be referred to a school support team for additional support and ideas. Students may be referred for a psychoeducational assessment or a speech language assessment. And even students who are in Tier 3 for a specific area are still participating in Tier 1 instruction and the whole class literacy activities. So I know we had a question in the chat about how tier 3 can be provided when there's only one resource teacher at the school. So as I said before, all schools come up with their own approach to tiered intervention. And again, tier 3 is meant for about 5% of students. So at a school with, let's say, 400 students, we're looking at about 20 students getting this type of instruction, and that's only for a small part of the day. So, and there's different approaches to that as well. So again, just to reiterate, these interventions are not fully provided by special education teachers. They are developed in combination with classroom teacher instruction and small group instruction within the regular class as well.
There's a follow-up question as well in the chat saying, is structured literacy being taught in grades 4 to 8? And the answer to that is yes, because the 5 pillars of structured literacy, you would weigh more into whether it depends whether those students actually in grade 4 to 8 are learning to read. So in that case, yes, they would be receiving sort of what people traditionally consider structured literacy. But as students progress through their reading and they've essentially learned to read and now they're reading to learn, the new curriculum certainly still is structured in a way that supports like vocabulary, morphology, so learning how words change, like in science contexts, in social study contexts, and things like that. Do teachers in grade 4 to 8 have training in structured literacy? I think it would vary school to school, but certainly there's opportunities for teachers in grade 4 to 8 to have training in structured literacy. And structured literacy, I mean, it depends whether what you're referring to is early reading. So if we're talking about a tier 3 student who is still, they might be in grade 4 to 8, but still be learning how to read, in which case these are the students that we're looking at with tier 3 program interventions and things like that. But yes, structured literacy flows throughout the whole curriculum up to grade 8. It just looks differently. It looks more complex. We're learning how to change words. We're learning subject-specific vocabulary and focusing on comprehension as well. Okay, so here's an example of some of the tiered reading programs that are offered in the schools in TDSB. And so some of them are more widely offered than others, and schools certainly wouldn't have all of these programs. They might have a selection of 1 or 2 of them. And we're going to do a little bit of a dive into each one so you can understand what they look like. So the first one is Lexia. I think you're doing Lexia, Vicki, unless you want me to. I'm happy to.
Sorry, I was just answering a question in the chat.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I can do chat. I'll look at the chat.
Okay. All right. So one of the programs that is being provided through the Special Education and Inclusion Department to support students at a tier 2 and 3 level is a program called Lexia. There's 2 programs through Lexia. So there's Lexia Core 5 Reading, which is for students in kindergarten to grade 5, and Lexia Power Up Literacy, which is for students in grade 6 and above. These are both blended learning programs. So they are a combination of an online individualized program that students are using to complete activities and teacher-led instruction to reinforce and practice the same skills. So students log into an account on a computer, complete activities based on assessment and ongoing assessment in the program to build skills in literacy, whichever grade level they are working at. So they may be in grade 5, but they may have one area that they still need to master a skill at a lower level. the program would give them activities at that level. If they struggle with an activity, the teacher is notified and given specific information around what instruction students need. So students develop to progress to build different skills at their own level. And it's really important that if students are using these programs, that it's a combination of students logging in and doing the activities on their own to build independent skill levels, but also that there's teacher monitoring and follow-up as well. So these licenses have been provided to schools who wanted them. Schools can allocate them to students sort of in accordance to their own tiered literacy support. And then how that looks specifically at each school, when students are logging on, who's monitoring, would depend on each school.
Sorry, I was just in the chat too. Okay, so in Empower, some increasing number of schools are selecting Empower as one of their reading programs, and we thought we would show a video here. Let me know if you can hear the sound. Can you hear the sound? Can you hear the sound okay?
No.
Okay, I think that I know what to do. I will share again. This will fix it.
We're starting in 3, 2, 1, action!
You like the Empower program, Isaiah? Yeah, you like it. Why do you like it?
I read better.
If I know grab, then I know app. Check my vowel O, underline the spelling pattern O-U-T.
Empower, combined with his classroom experience, he's really seen some huge improvements.
U-N-K.
It's not as discouraged as he was at the beginning. He's a lot happier.
Yeah.
I see the vowel I. I'll stop. Pig, then I know. And what a world of difference.
Wig.
He was empowered.
Read a book.
Read a book, yeah.
You can read long words.
Long words.
They all sit together in my class, so they help each other out.
All right, so what strategies are we
Sometimes I teach my little brother to read.
When they've used multiple strategies to read a word, you just see their faces light up because you're talking about kids that were reading below a grade 1 level and then reading at their grade level.
Since he was in grade 1, he never knew like words he knows.
I did give you a word. You show mom and go come, but you have to read it. So can you show the word and say it to the camera? What's the word?
Study. My keyword is keep. If I know keep, then I know sheep. I'll check mark my vowel art and then this spelling pattern.
If they're here every day, that's when we see the progress. That's when they soar.
니시가 같이 지행이고 school 제가 시즌 목소리도 석자가 제가 보니 que 시즌도 잘 다니셔서 석자가 czytać
I mean, at the beginning of the year, he couldn't read. I mean, he could read that one letter word, but he was really poor. And but now he reads on his own.
What are you looking at, Caleb?
Trying to find it. Oh, there's skunk.
This is our This is our peeling off tree. And what is this side?
Beginning.
And what about these leaves?
Ending.
That's what I like about this program is at the same time they're actually having fun as they're learning. And I think that's how it's helping them. It's having fun doing this.
workshop snakkajat this reading program. Mostly nishtam tishatshibir negi snacksat dishti jagachi yimtat. Hagachin sumi hijat. Shasharito dia. Nabajan snamo dia. Noj wichi bumshti.
Okay, I will reshare. Here, 3:45.
I'm going to see which one she prefers, but I think.
Perfect. Okay, so another range of programs that a lot of schools have adopted in recent years is one of the Wilson programs. And so there are 3 different programs that Wilson offers that you'll find in schools. The first one, I'm going to start actually on the right with Fundations. And so Fundations is a program that's used with our younger students in kindergarten to grade 3 to help them build essential reading skills. This program focuses on letter-sound relationships, blending sounds into words, and early reading and spelling skills. It's implemented in both the whole class setting as well as in small groups to offer additional support when it's needed. Fundations uses a hands-on interactive activities to help students understand how letters and sounds work together. Just Words, which is in the middle there, is designed for students in grade 4 all the way up to grade 12 who might have areas for growth in decoding, which means sounding out words, and spelling. So this program, Just Words, focuses on teaching students how to recognize the patterns in words, making reading and writing more manageable. It's structured and it's clear, allowing students to build on their existing knowledge and to gain new skills. Just Words supports students who need targeted assistance, but who don't require a more intensive level of support, because that level of support is offered on the left with the Wilson Reading System program. And so that program is an intensive program that's designed for students in grade 2 to 12 who have more significant areas for growth in reading, particularly those who might have a learning disability. In small group settings, students learn to break down words into smaller, more manageable parts and to understand the patterns that help make reading easier. So this Wilson Reading System program incorporates a multi-sensory approach as well, tapping and using skywriting and bumpy surfaces, meaning students engage with the materials through all different sounds, touching, and as well as reading with their eyes. The program builds confidence and provides the extra support that students might need to make progress in their reading journey. So these 3 programs are really tailored to meet students where they are, providing the right level of support based on their unique learning needs. So those ones are Wilson. And finally, there were some questions, I believe, on how parents can support their students. If you scan the black and white QR code on the right-hand side, it will take you to this Early Years Literacy for Family and Caregivers website. And there's a lot of really interesting information there and resources available for parents and caregivers. And finally, there is, The last slide, if you scan the QR code, so the black and white square on the right-hand side at the top, that will take you to Onlit, which, to be honest, is primarily a site for educators, giving them the background they need on structured literacy. But I know that lots of parents find it really helpful. There are modules that you can complete. It's free of charge. And completing those modules would certainly help you support your student in their early reading journey at home. And finally, the QR code on the bottom left will take you directly to the TDSB virtual library. So in that area, there's a whole wealth of information for parents, but there's also resources for your student, no matter what grade they are in TDSB. It includes things like ebooks, educational videos, interactive websites for them to use. So whether your child is just beginning their reading journey or is advancing their skills, this virtual library here provides the materials that align with what they're learning in the classroom.
And I have added those 3 links in the chat as well for those of you who just don't feel like using a QR code.
Sure, no problem. And now we have a few minutes to answer any questions. I'm just opening the chat too. I will stop sharing. So if anybody has any questions, just feel free to unmute, or you can type them in the chat, but you can also unmute and ask any questions as well.
I will stay on for a few moments at the end in case you want to ask just an individual question, and we can try to help you out. If you don't have any questions, we thank you so much for your time on a Saturday. We appreciate you coming, and have a great rest of your day. All right, I don't see any questions. We'll just give everybody one more minute. You may have walked away from your phone or computer. And again, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.